What is good, everyone? It is the Pesce Lanzillotta Team Podcast. We are back, and we're back to talk about probably one of the most, what you would assume would be the most boring subjects possible in all of real estate. And,
but it's a hot topic.
Well, it's a hot topic, but it's also a very deceiving one, I think. And it's important to be educated on it because we just went through a process with a seller where they were not educated on it, and to be quite frank, they're walking away with tens of thousands of less dollars than they could have had, and we had to sell the house 3 or 4 times in order to actually get to where we needed to be with them, right? And so they collected time on market because of what we're about to talk about, and they lost money. So anybody who owns a house where you're looking to sell at some point in the near future, it's important that you know what we're about to talk about today. So give you a little background. We're basically talking about solar panels. Solar panels.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is. So we took a listing recently. The listing was a house in a very desirable neighborhood. The house was not kept up with. I would call the house, the kitchen was the newest thing in the house. It was probably 15 years old, the kitchen. Okay. And we're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing a lot of baby boomers who bought their house in the 80s. It was relatively new at the time. They didn't put a lot of money into it. They still think it's the Taj Mahal.
Or if I could just cut in. So, or they know it's not the Taj Mahal, but they're like, hey, the house has great bones. It's livable. It's neat.
Right.
It's fine. And it's a difference. It's a generational difference that a lot of the older generation just doesn't get it. Yeah. They don't understand. Right. The newer generation no longer cares if the house has good bones. They want updated. Yeah. They want the white and the stainless steel and all that. And so it's just a difference in thinking.
Yep. So to make a long story short, in this particular home, the house was mostly original to the 80s. It did not have central air. It did not have, it was not efficient, right? We had wall hung air conditioners.
No hi-hats. Yeah.
Nothing, right? So to make a long story short, their electric bill, the cost to heat and cool the home, specifically in the summertime, was $500-$600, maybe even $700 a month in some cases, right, to cool down a house in a hot July-August month. So a family member happened to be a solar panel salesman. Okay, so they knew that in 3 to 5 years we're going to end up having to sell this house, right? The kids were out. They're in a situation where we want to sell it, but we hate these bills. Right. So what do? They call upon their trusty family member and they bring him in, and he basically tells them, look, solar panels are free. Well, there's a charge for it, but in the end, net, what you're going to save with power, you're going to make money. You're going to be in the green. And it's all good. Sign the contract. We'll get them up. You're all set. Well, there's a lot of things that people don't understand about free, and free is never really free, specifically when you're signing a lease, because that's what these solar panels are. They're a lease. So let's talk about what a lease is, how they work, and how do you get out of them, or can you get out of them, I guess is the big question, right? So think about it like this. You're getting these solar panels. The solar panels are, let's say, $30,000. Okay, that's what they actually cost. The company, what they do is they go to the banks and they create these documents, and in the document is it's a schedule of payments throughout the term of the agreement, right? So the bank agrees that yes, if you can get homeowners to sign these agreements, we will cut you a check for the full price of that agreement minus the interest. We'll hold the note, and we'll collect the interest along the term of the agreement, because that's the business that banks are in, right? They're in the business of making loans. So let's say I don't even know how to break it out, but to make a long story short, what was it, a 20-year lease?
Yeah, I think it's 20-year lease.
20-year lease.
20-year lease.
20-year lease. Okay. The person from the solar company comes to your house. Everything's free. Don't worry about it. Sign on the dotted line. We're going to save you money. They do it. Then he takes it back to his company. The company gives the paper to the bank. The bank gives them the check for the $30,000 in solar panels up front. So now this is a binding agreement. You can't just walk away from it, right? So as a homeowner who's in a house that is not efficient, okay, that is burning through energy like crazy, to sign an agreement like that within 3 to 5 years of the time that you need to actually sell the house is pure stupidity. Okay? And some people, they do it because they don't understand the implications of it. So when we listed this house, we had gotten offers real close to list price, probably within $20,000 of the list. That buyer, the first buyer, walked away because they didn't like the look of the solar panels, okay, because of the placement on the roof of the solar panels. So I guess that's something that you should definitely consider is where are you putting these things on the house? Are they visual from the front of the house? Are they visual from the back of the house? Can you hide them completely somehow on the roof, etc.? The second buyer, when we sent them the lease, there was things within the lease that they started to dig up that gave them a big cause for concern, such as you can't pay the lease off until year 7. They're not even close to year 7. They're in like year
3 or 4,
3 or 4, right? So even if you wanted to pay these things off and move on, you couldn't. Second, if you look at the schedule of payments, as time goes on, the payments escalate. So I believe the payment was somewhere around $200 a month now. And I think they got up to about $425 as time went on for the same solar panels.
Yeah.
So any buyer who comes to buy this home, which we finally did sell it, but it came at the cost of what the homeowner was actually going to put in their pocket in the end. They had to buy the house, but they also had to buy or agree to, assuming this lease, it's not going away. And the house itself is dated. So when you put solar panels on a house that's inefficient, you're not really doing much to fix the problem. You got to go out and you got to get hydronic forced hot air. You got to update the house, renovate it. You have to put things in that aren't going to make your electric meter spin like crazy.
Yeah.
Right? And then after you do that, consider putting panels on the house.
Yeah. So just to be clear, right? So the house, if you have a house that's not updated, obviously, in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s, a lot of the equipment wasn't energy efficient. Now everything gets an energy rating. There's energy efficient equipment. And this house didn't have hi-hats. It didn't have central air. So you're going to take down walls. You're going to put in the hi-hats, put in the ductwork. You're going to re-insulate, right? All that stuff's going to get upgraded. So while the current homeowners are like, well, the buyers should be happy because this is saving them money on their electric bill, even with the lease payment of the solar panels, the reality is once they update the entire house and re-insulate it and put in updated energy efficient equipment, I mean, right there, their bill is going to go down dramatically as is. And then there's a good chance that they're actually spending more when you add the lease of the solar panels, because the energy bill's so low anyway, just because everything's been updated.
Right. And in the end, it's a commitment, right? I mean, think about it. Try selling a car to a prospective buyer that they don't really want. They have to with the house, right?
Yeah.
That's basically what you're doing to a certain degree if you do it wrong. Doing it right is renovating the house, upgrading the equipment that you use to heat and cool the house so that it's energy efficient to begin with, so that your bill's already small, and then putting panels on a house in an inconspicuous place on the roof that you can't see it from the front yard, or you can't see it from the backyard, where no one's going to care, right?
Well, yeah, but a lot of times you don't have a choice because they have to face the sun. So you can't,
That too.
if the roof of your house has a southern exposure and a northern exposure, well, they gotta go on the southern exposure. I
Yep.
mean, you can put them on the northern exposure, but that'd just be stupid because
Yeah.
they're not getting as much sunlight and therefore creating as much energy. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of variables, and the fact is, it's just another thing. It's another potential obstacle for a buyer to overcome unless you have, I mean, in my opinion, unless the solar panels, unless your house is situated where the solar panels can go on in the perfect spot, that they're not going to be an eyesore at all, and even a buyer who might mind the way they look isn't going to care, right? And then also you're purchasing them outright so that the buyer's not going to have to assume anything. I mean, unless you have that exact scenario, it's just another obstacle likely you're going to have to overcome when you're looking for a buyer.
Well, it's also something that we should talk about is leased solar panels do not add value to the home.
No, they may even hurt. They may even hurt the value because it's the monthly payment.
With the monthly payment, then the monthly payment can escalate, like we just discussed,
Right.
and it's something that a buyer has to assume when purchasing the home. So ultimately, you should be buying these things out, but honestly, to buy them out and stay there, to buy them out, you need to be in the house for 30 years to probably get your money back and then some, right? You have to assume if they're 30 grand up front, how much.
Well, you're going to get $30,000 in savings from your electric bill. How long is that going to take?
I don't know. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. So that's what you have to kind of calculate in your mind. But ultimately, this is really about if you're looking to sell your house in the next 3 to 5 to obviously 7 years, because you can't pay these things off for 7 years, and some solar panel salesman comes knocking on your door asking you to put solar panels on your roof, it's really something that you have to really dissect, you have to think about, you have to understand what you're committing to in that lease, and you have to think about your home. I mean, it's easy to sign a free lease and put solar panels on the roof, rather than go and spend $20,000 upgrading your heating and cooling air conditioning system in the home.
Well, that's the other thing. They have a really attractive pitch. I mean, the pitch that a lot of these solar panel companies give is like, hey, what if I could put solar panels on your roof? You don't have to come anything out of pocket. The state will pay for it, and you get like some sort of tax rebate. You're like, well, all right, if I'm getting free solar panels, yeah, I mean, I'll do that. Why not?
Yeah,
all right.
Exactly.
And then everyone also knows someone.
Mm-hmm.
They go on Facebook and it's like, hey, I'm thinking about putting solar panels. Anyone have a guy? And the second some stranger on Facebook says, yeah, I have a guy, right? I see this all the time in like the dad's groups and the mom's groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got a guy. They go, oh, wow, all right, this guy's recommended. He's reputable. He's trustworthy. And then they don't even ask questions. They don't. I mean, in this case,
was a family.
It was it was a brother or whatever, brother-in-law. So they don't read through the lease and they just think they're getting a great deal. I mean, yeah, the fact is it's a business, and a lot of these companies are making money off it, and they're making money off it because they're getting good deals on it.
Right.
It's, I always found it funny because, I mean, people obviously don't think this way, and I may not either if I wasn't, in the business, but people always, whenever they do work to their house or think about doing work to their house, none of them ever think, let me call a realtor to get their opinion first. Nobody.
Yeah.
But you think that, I mean, I would say, conservatively speaking, 60% of the time you put money into your house, you're probably not going to get the money out of it.
Well, what people don't understand is that a house is worth the most amount of money immediately after it's finished. And then the home, not the land, the home ages with time.
Right.
The land can appreciate, and the value of the home, that the value of the land that the home sits on can appreciate over time, which is what we've seen. But when interest rates are as low as they are, and money's as free as it is, it's hard to say that we're going to see a ton of appreciation. At least I think so in the next 3 to 5 years. The only places that appreciate are places that are gentrifying, right? If a new train station opens up in a neighborhood, and like a Patchogue, right? The past 5 to 7 years, Patchogue has become a real hip place.
Nice.
The village has become a place where there's a young community there now. That's gentrification, right? That's something happening that almost couldn't be seen, but could be seen very little at one time. But all things being equal, a home is worth the most amount of money right when it's built.
Yeah,
because it's the most brand new.
Yes, relatively speaking. I mean, it could be so. Housing prices will appreciate over time, right? Over the long haul, probably. But you're putting a house is only your primary residence should not be looked at. It's an investment, but you shouldn't look at it as like I'm making an investment the same as if you invest in the stock market. Because while it's an investment, you have to maintain it. So you're paying taxes on it, you're paying insurance on it. And Tehran's point, if you buy something brand new, it's brand new. 15 years later, it's not brand new. For you to get the same value out, just everything else being equal, appreciation, everything aside, you have to update the kitchens, update the bathrooms, repaint it, update the floors. Maybe now the buyer's saying, well, the roof, I'm going to need to put on a roof soon. I need to put in new heating unit, new cooling unit soon, right? So all those things. So if you're not constantly investing in your house and maintaining it, then you can't expect to sell it for top dollar, because a buyer is going to look at all that and say, well, yeah, it's livable, but I'm going to have to do all this stuff. And eventually when I go to sell it, I'm going to have to take that into consideration.
And to that point, just throwing solar panels on the roof for the sake of throwing solar panels on the roof and saving a couple bucks on your bill, that cost the homeowner that we just sold their home $40,000 from that first initial buyer to the one that we finally were able to put into contract. So to kind of circle back and wrap everything up around the solar panel discussion, understand that there is a third party involved. That third party is the bank. The solar panel company is selling that paper off to the bank. And if you plan on selling that property in the near term, and by near term I mean 3 to 7 years out from the time you put those solar panels on, you have to make sure your house is updated. You have to make sure those panels are in an inconspicuous location. And you got to know what you're signing, because escalating payments over time are a no-no. It just creates fear in the transaction, and your buyer will walk, or the value of your home is just, it's gonna come right off that top line number.
Yeah. I would even go so far as to say, even if you're not selling the next 5 to 7 years, I would be extremely wary and extremely cautious of just leasing solar panels in general. I mean, obviously they're very expensive, so to just, to buy them outright is not an option for a lot of people. But again, you're tying your house up into 20, if a lot changes in 10 years, so you may not plan on selling, but the second you sign that lease, it's a long-term lease. And, Tehran's point, you have to make sure you think it through. I would probably, unless it's some type of significant savings where it's like really a no-brainer, or there's some other situation going on, I mean, the risks of leasing solar panels, to me, outweigh the benefits in most instances.
Yeah. Unless it's done right, at which point I think a buyer would have no problem having that lease assigned to them, right? If the house is new, the roof is new, the energy is efficient, and the panels are actually saving the homeowner money, there's a real benefit there, all things being equal in that department, they'll assign them, because we've sold houses with panels on them before that the buyer has taken assignment on that lease without pushing back at all, and it's because it was done right, which is the whole point of this podcast. So, Mike, Paul, anything else to add with regards to solar panels?
No, not solar panels. But if you're thinking about doing work in general, I mean, I would call anybody. I mean, I would get, even if it's a friend who's in the business or somebody, get their opinion. I mean, you're talking about, especially because people, they put work into the house expecting to get the value out. Like, all right, if I put $30,000 in my kitchen, my house is worth $30,000 more. And usually, it more often than not, that's not the case.
Depends.
So I would just check with people before doing anything, in general.
All depends upon what you're doing to the house.
Right.
But that's a whole other discussion for a whole other podcast. But that's all we have on solar panels for you. And we are the Pesce Lanzillotta Team Podcast. Our number is 516-888-9711. Reach out if you have any questions, and we'll see you soon.